Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Dentistry Beyond the Numbers. I'm Dr. Marc Liechtung, and it is a fabulous time to talk about what we're talking about, fortunately or unfortunately. My very special guest today, we talked about to a lot of great dentists and huge producers, but there's an old adage, right? It's what you keep, not what you make, and it's not what you earn, but what you do with it. And it's really a tremendous honor to bring somebody I've discussed these things with, and I really feel like we need to pick his brain. His name is Tim McNeely. He's from Dental Wealth Nation. Tim is a financial strategist. The interesting thing for Tim is he specializes in us, in dentists. And it's so exciting when a guy comes in, even a gal, but Tim comes in, he just knows the industry, knows the practice, succession plans, what we're looking for in an exit. We're going to talk about all that. We'll dive into how strategic financial planning can set you up for a great exit that aligns with your life goals, whether that's building with a long-term wealth or optimizing for a sale to a DSO or structuring an annuity-based succession plan. Awesome. We'll also discuss key questions every dentist should ask. Without further ado, I want to bring on a financial wizard in our field, and we're so lucky. Tim McNeely, how are you, sir?
Great. Excellent. I feel like I should have put on my wizard hat for this.
Yeah, there you go. I think you are. You're going to be helping us navigate this unbelievable troubled waters or whatever it is. We are a professional, so our profession should be pretty good as we go on with this. But go ahead, Tim. Tim, before we get started, I found it very interesting when we met that you really are a financial planner that almost specializes in working with dentists. Something I didn't meet early on in my career. Tell me about, how did you get into that? How did that start?
Oh, it all started when I fell in love, like any good story does, and met and fell in love with a beautiful dentist here in Bakersfield, California. My wife, Dr. Dana Yeoman. And what was interesting, Mark, is I didn't know I specialized in dentists at that point either. I specialized in anyone who had a pulse. Like that was who I helped. Is if you had money, if you had no money, I could help you out. And then met and fell in love with my wife. And as a dentist, I quickly discovered all the book knowledge I had, all the case studies I had done. It really didn't mean anything in the real world because I didn't have any practical experience actually helping a business owner achieve their most important financial goals.
See,
And my wife and I, right, kind of common. We'd be out to dinner at date night or, taking a walk in the evening. And all of a sudden the conversation about our hopes and our dreams and where we wanted to go, well, as you can imagine, didn't turn into what am I going to do about the practice? How am I going to grow it? What do I do about taxes? How do I exit eventually? And like I said, as an ordinary advisor, I had no idea how to help my wife. And I found myself in a job I hated and I couldn't take care of the person I love the most. And I knew something had to change. And so I reached out and I hired some of the best consultants in my industry to really figure out what is wealth management? Like how do we make a difference for clients that we care about? And I discovered and learned a wealth management process that we'll talk about tonight. We'll share some of those strategies and tactics. And my wife and I started implementing those. And we got back to enjoying our date nights again. We got back to being able to talk about our hopes and our dreams and life together. And the practice started getting better. And I didn't know it at the time, but what I was doing is I was actually building a family office for us. I was assembling a team of the best experts who could help us in all the different areas of our practice. But when this really came home for us, Mark, is when my wife started having problems with her hands, right? As dentists, you know exactly how much your hands matter. Imagine being not able even to hold forceps anymore to do extractions. That's the position Dana found herself in. And we're people of faith. We spent some time in prayer, but once we had our heads on straight, we went back to implementing these lessons that we learned. We did something called a stress test of our plans. And in that stress test, we actually discovered some errors in the way her disability policy was set up. We corrected that error. We built some tax-free income by doing that and breathed a massive sigh of relief. And I'll never forget being down in beautiful San Diego Del Mar. We were down there not for the sun and the surf and the sand. We were sitting under the harsh fluorescent lights of a doctor's office, waiting for the specialist to come in and tell Dana if she had a future in dentistry. Imagine what that would feel like, sitting there with the person you love the most, waiting for the doctor to come in and tell them if they had a future in their chosen career.
Thank you.
And I will never, ever forget that day. because it didn't matter what the doctor told us when he came in the room. We had run the numbers, we had done the stress test, and we knew that no matter what he told us, we were going to be okay. And so that's what launched my career into dentistry.
And I got to believe it helped your wife get better.
Helping her get better.
She's okay. That's the most important.
They're wonderful today, but that's where it started from. It was getting that experience, and I saw the big impact I could have on entrepreneurs, helping them take advantage of opportunities and be prepared when things don't go as planned.
Tim, let me ask you a question. I want to break this down. The way I look at it is three distinct differences in my career. When I was young, I was a bull. New York, took on the big city. And I wanted to focus on running a profitable practice, like you alluded to with you and your wife. You have these plans. I have marketing plans, R&D plans. We have capital expenditure plans, all these plans. Well, what does it mean to actually build wealth when we're young? So we're going to take it through a little time capsule. When we're young, we want to build a profitable practice. What can they do other than speak to you and speak to a planner? But we're going to get into that. But what could we do as young dentists now to prepare for a life of wealth instead of making a good income?
Yeah. One of the things I hear all the time from people is they want to build generational wealth. They want to build wealth that has an impact. And I want to stress something here, and this is important for everyone to learn. You only got to get rich one time. That's all it takes. You just got to get rich once. So you might as well do it as quickly as possible, because once you're rich, you're there. Once you've built the wealth, you're there. And the way you get wealthy in this country is there's a small number of people who manage to save themselves to wealth. And you've heard those stories about that person who dies when he's driving the old Honda and beat up shoes and has, umpteen $1 million in the bank. But that's the rare story. Right. The common story, the common way that you build generational wealth is through equity ownership in a business. And so how do you do that? At the young stages of your career, right when you get out, right, you want to focus on mastery of the practice, you want to focus on the margins of the practice, and you want to focus on building momentum, right? You really want to get your clinical skills up to par so that you can do the dentistry quickly and well. You want to get your financial house in order. That's the margins of your practice and personally. And more importantly, you want to begin with the end in mind, right? You want to know where you're heading, because if you plan towards that exit, if you build a great business, you're going to have a great exit and you're going to enjoy your business more today. But it starts with those three things: master the clinical skills,
Absolutely.
make sure your margins are in order, and build that momentum as you start.
That was a phenomenal line. I hope everybody, because we talked about it through the last several episodes about building that mastering in the first several years of your career, clinical excellence. And what you're bringing is also looking for the future and started to build what we hope to be generational wealth. As I get older, I want to provide more for the generations that are coming after me. And then I become a middle-aged dentist, right? And what are the common financial mistakes we as dentists make as it relates to developing that long-term financial plan? We have this plan in place. What is it that we neglect or make those pitfalls?
Yeah, well, what I see so often in mid-career and actually even in late career is the advisors that you started with, you've outgrown them. If you are a driven dental entrepreneur, you had moved on, right? You're starting to build an incredible practice. You're starting to get scale. You're starting to specialize. You're gaining some sophistication.
Yep.
But the advisors that you have around you, your buddy who was the CPA in college, you've probably outgrown him. That financial advisor who you met at the golf course, and maybe they're a good investment advisor, but they don't understand what your life as an entrepreneur is like. And so you typically outgrow your advisors. That's mistake number one. The second mistake I see is lifestyle creep, right? You start to make more money and you're like, hey, this is great. And you certainly should enjoy everything you've been working hard for. But a lot of times you start spending that income on assets that aren't going to grow, that assets aren't going to continue to feed your wealth. You spend them on things that don't necessarily produce an ROI. And if that's your end goal, then that's great. Enjoy that. But if you're focused on growing the business, you want to be able to reinvest that income into growing or expanding, adding an associate or building a DSO model. Or perhaps you decide during the middle of your career, you're like, hey, I like the dentistry part, but I don't like the business part. And so you got to start looking at what you want your life to really look at. So clarity matters in that mid stage.
I got to tell you, I got to chime in. I find two types of dentists as we go on. And I see a lot of people with practices and maybe they want to get acquired or I can help that way. But I see people that love dentistry and they reinvent themselves. To your point, they may get into a DSO. They may want to buy a group. They might want to have a son who comes out. They want to get involved. And then there are those that have enough and they want that future. And they say, my back is bad. I want to travel. I want to play golf. I want to hang out. I'm not the guy who wants to, rain make. What should dentists take to ensure that we are ready to retire? I mean, I read a lot of articles about that. Like, when do you wake up and say, you know what? That's it. End of the month. I'm done. I don't have to think about it. What's that point when every bill is secured, when you have annuity wealth? When do you see that dentist, when he or she wakes up and says, creak in my back, I think I'm done. And I'm not saying I'm done because physical, I'm done because financial security is in place. I have to get that.
I call that having the freedom to untether from the chair, right? When you can walk away and when you can work because you want to, not because you have to. But to get there, you got to know your number. This is another common mistake I see. Most people don't realize that they have a wealth gap in the plan. What's a wealth gap? What are you talking about, Tim? Well, a wealth gap is simply the difference between what you have now versus what you require to produce that annuity-like income, to produce enough passive income to replace what your business generates. So how do you close that wealth gap? Well, most people say, oh, I need to put more money in my retirement plans. Great strategy. You should do that. But that's not the real way to close your wealth gap. The quickest and easiest way for dental entrepreneurs to close that wealth gap is to focus on value acceleration of your practice. How do you increase the value? How do you grow your EBITDA, right? How do you shift that multiple to best in class EBITDA, not middle of the road EBITDA, but best in class so that you're getting the highest multiples?
That's great.
That's how you close the wealth gap, is through equity ownership in your business. That's how you reach that level quicker. And
Simply translated, it's just build a big business.
You got business you love. You got to love it. It's got to be profitable, and it's got to be well run.
I got to ask you a question off the something that came to mind. I always envision building a practice or a group of a few and just use it as an annuity. Hand it off to a child or get a partner or an associate and just pay as we go. We collect every month and that's your retirement. Does that work? I mean, is that at some point, are you looking for a problem or just holding on, I guess, a little longer than maybe our involvement allows us? We're no longer involved, but we're accepting that annuity. I guess, why not, right? I mean,
Yeah. Well, so think about it this way, right? It certainly is a valid strategy to help produce income for you. But like anything, you want to diversify your risk. So a lot of doctors, they will acquire the real estate that their practice is in. Great strategy, right? My wife owns her building, right? We celebrated by going out to dinner and everyone was wondering, like, what are you guys doing? We're like, we pay off the mortgage on our building. Like, it was a great moment to do that.
sure.
But there's a risk inherent in that because when my wife sells the practice, part of the retirement income is going to be dependent on a singular renter in a singular building. What happens if that renter can't produce? What happens if their practice gets in trouble? What happens to our income? So that's part of that stress testing process.
Wait.
And that dental strategy may very well work, but what happens if we get an economic decline? Are you stress testing that to understand how that impacts your lifestyle? But yeah, it's a valid strategy to own a business in retirement as long as you've been able to step back and hire a CEO to run that thing so that it's passive involvement.
That does get a little bit hairy when you have to do day to day more than you anticipated. But that's a great point you make, just to really accelerate the growth and really produce a fabulous in time. You're not saying this accelerate, but build that growth within the business of the practice and the equity value to give you that gap of getting that money to have when you retire. What about the different strategies? Now we're moving towards, we talk a lot about succession and exits. That's the craze of the world. It bothers me almost when people ask me, am I retired? I get it all the time. And I think it's a knock on my, maybe I look old, but I love dentistry. Dentistry has been amazing for me in the different arenas that I was able to be and to, I guess, survive in. But what are the different exit strategies and does it correlate to an age? Like if you're advising somebody, we got a lot of options, DSO, DPOs. Look at you get a very good sort of snapshot in time to evaluate these exits. How do you advise your clients? I mean, how do you go about an exit?
Yeah. So, first off, most driven dental entrepreneurs, you don't retire. You simply move on to something better. And I see that time and time again, right? It's so hard to
Well said. Well,
because that's what got you there, right? Is your drive and your passion for having an impact on the world. So you don't retire, you move on to something better. So first keep that in mind. But as you do start getting older, as you've accumulated a practice, as you paid down your wealth, right? As you're late in your career, the primary focus really shifts as three things. It's exit planning, it's your impact, and it's your legacy, right? So important. Exit planning, impact, and legacy. And you want to stay focused on these, right? You're near the finish line, you want to finish well. And so often, some of the mistakes that get made is a doctor will start scaling back their practice. And certainly, right, you deserve some time off, but now you've gone from 5 days a week to 4 days a week to 3 days a week. And what happens to your practice income? That also comes down. And as that comes down, that eats away and that actually makes your wealth gap so much larger. So you want to really exit and transition on your terms. And Mark, there's never been a better time to exit because there's so many different options today. If you want to stay on and work back and get rid of the business side, you can do that. If you want to sell and walk away, you can do that. If you want to sell to an individual doctor, you can do that. You have so many options. And the valuations right now are so good. So I would tell you, no matter where you are, be looking at these things, if nothing more so that you can get a value of your largest asset that you own. You need to know what it's worth. And so that's what you got to do late in your careers is be focused on the value, be focused on the drivers of value, and be thinking about what does your legacy look like and what's next for you. Get some clarity because once again, you're not going to retire. You're going to just simply move on to something better.
that's right. That's great. So well said. Thank you. I think that's very, very telling. And I mean, we talk about it. I think you're alluding to if you're getting tired, the best way to bring on an associate, and then you actually have a succession plan. And to keep the avenues going and the avenues of exit, succession plans are very much needed. We're all, thank God, we're getting older, and these groups we know have an age limit on what they're looking for. It's no secret. So I want to reiterate that I believe looking at an associate and bringing it in, he or she in to incorporate into the practice. So many doctors say, no, I don't want to do that. I'd rather close. That's, to your point, ridiculous. Well, literally. Go ahead.
And I'll share one stat with you that just absolutely is shocking. According to the Exit Planning Institute, and I'm a member there, I'm a certified exit planning advisor, 30% of business owners, that's 3 out of 10, have an exit plan. That means 7 out of 10 don't, right? The super majority, 70% of business owners have no succession plan whatsoever. That is absolutely irresponsible to your family, to the people you love, to the causes you care about, to not have a well thought out plan for what is possibly the largest asset you own. That to me is insanity.
And what is this annuity-based exit I've been hearing about? Is
Well,
that
So I think that's actually what you were even talking about earlier is, right, maybe you own a group of practices and you still receive income for the rest of your life. That's really all an annuity is. It's a stream of income payments for you.
that's what we all search for, isn't it? Sit on a beach and just get checks. I mean, that's the way you do it. So let me ask you, now I'm a mentor to a lot of doctors clinically. I give them the verbiage, teach them how to treat and plan. But how do we get these young doctors, the listeners, how do we get them to understand their financial strategies? What should we be asking ourselves? What literally should a young doctor say, am I doing this? I mean, what do you prepare them for? Or just a little bit of a snapshot of looking into when they're starting to get there. I have a doctor who works with me for a long time. He's had the same financial planner since he started with me 12 years ago, and he's a young guy, but he always relies on that person, and he makes a ton of money. I'm just asking, what does a guy ask? Like, Tim, I'm interested in, how do I do that? I'm interested in knowing when I'm 45, 50, I'm doing dentistry as a hobby. Now, how do I do that?
So I'll share with you how the super rich do this. I'll share with you how the wealthiest families on the face of this planet. When I was invited to write the foreword to this book right here, Becoming Seriously Wealthy, we dive into a lot of the research on family offices, and family offices are nothing more than a team of the best individuals that an ultra wealthy family will hire, and they put them in their family office. And the job of this team is to manage the family's wealth. So what do they do? How do they get the results? What are the questions they ask? I'm about to share this with you, Mark, and it's really, really simple. It's called trust but verify. Do what our President Ronald Reagan shared: trust but verify. The question you should ask is, are your plans going to deliver the results that you expect? That's all. And you stress test your plans. This is what you do. And in fact, 93.5%, right? The supermajority of family offices have done a stress test in the last 5 years. And they do this to uncover hidden risk and missed opportunities. And so if in your planning, you're thinking, hey, I'm going to be, I've done the plans, everything shows that I'm going to be able to walk away at 55. Well, trust it, but go verify it. Have someone put a second set of eyes on it, get a second opinion, run a stress test. If you're not sure, if you've never done that, just get a plan together so that you know what you're aiming for, so that you know what your wealth gap is. And the other thing to keep in mind is planning like this, it's not static, right? I don't go in once in my lifetime for a cleaning. No, I'm in there every 3 months for a cleaning. As things change, your financial life changes, birth of a child or grandchild or death or divorce, right? Your plans need to update with you. That's what stress testing helps do. And that's why the super rich do it. That's why you should consider it also.
That's awesome. No, I'm going to lead into this. I want to tell everyone, I met Tim. We talked. I was blown away by his insights in the dental field. And for us, the dentists, that's why he's here. And it's not anything else but that. But I really want to ask you, along those lines, when do we start thinking of an exit? I mean, from what I hear from you is maybe we should start thinking about the exit when we're planning our first stance or our entree into entrepreneurship. We should understand what our exit should look like. Or does that also come as you go?
No, begin with the end in mind. You absolutely need to know where you're heading. You got to start with a clear picture of what does your exit look like. And this is interesting, right? It requires a paradigm shift too, because so often you hear the word exit planning and you think, oh, that's what I do at the end of my career. But the truth is, and the paradigm shift that I want to encourage you to make is, good exit planning is good business planning. If you plan for a solid exit, even if that exit is 10, 20, 40 years in the future, you're going to have a business that's better run today. You're going to have a business you enjoy more today. You're going to have a business that's scalable and repeatable because you're building something that another buyer is going to want to acquire. So exit planning isn't just for the future. Exit planning is literally right now, today. At exit, may are the future.
That is an amazing point, because I really believe it's the advent of the groups, the DSOs, DPOs, these groups, like a family office, but these groups have come in and given us the guidelines of what to look for the higher EBITDA. So what Tim is saying is just simply, they're going to give us the guidelines of what a great exit looks like. We have now, as dentists, the ability to look at these guidelines and make sure our lab is 3%, our supplies are 4%, and keep the rent at 6%. And these are the things that are going to get us tremendous points, that these guidelines of our exit will develop our business as we go for 25, 30 years.
Yeah, right. You finally know what to aim for, right? You're not shooting in the dark. You know exactly what to aim for, and you know what areas need improvement and what to build. And there's so many good resources out there to help you do this.
Awesome. So let's pick your brain on that. How does somebody get up, and tomorrow, some of us want to get up and pick a financial planner? We're going to talk about how they reach you, but what should we be looking at when somebody is getting somebody to guide them?
So I believe there's two great ways to find a competent wealth manager. The first way is look for someone who's a thought leader in the space. Look for someone who's an author, a writer, a speaker. They're at the different conferences, right? They're out there really pushing the industry forward. So look for a thought leader. That's a great way to do it. The second way that you can find a good, high quality wealth advisor is ask the people around you, right? Ask your CPA, ask your attorney, ask the other trusted advisors. Who do you know that really excels at wealth management, not just investment planning, but true holistic wealth planning, and who can help me do a stress test and a second opinion. So ask your network and look for someone who's a thought leader.
What's a red flag? What's something that if you see somebody as somebody who deals with us, I mean, we're a special breed, us dentists. So, I'm just wondering, what's a red flag that we should look for?
Mm. I love that question. So the red flags are usually things that are too good to be true. And I see this all the time, whether it's, exit planning strategies that say you don't have to pay any taxes. You can give it all to a charity that you control. Oh, that sounds great. Sign me up. No, that'll get you on the IRS watch list real quickly. So look for things that sound too good to be true. Look for things that are proprietary in nature. If someone says, "Hey, Mark, I got this great thing, but you got to sign a non-disclosure because you can't tell anyone else about this planning strategy that we're doing." That's a red flag. Now NDAs in and of themselves aren't bad because, right, if you enter in transactions, you want NDAs there. I'm talking about like you just can't talk about the planning strategies. That's a red
And
flag.
you can't get a second opinion, in other words, right? So it's either that or you're locked in. That's what's race.
So those are red flags. And then usually if there's some kind of exorbitant planning fee to put these in place, it's usually a red flag.
I got to tell you, my red flag is that if he's not or she's not wearing a bow tie, they are not as educated in our field in dentistry for our preserved wealth. And really, I wish you were around 30 years ago. I really do. And let's address that for a second. What about a 60-year-old dentist? I want to get it out. If we're going to do it, I mean, as a 60-year-old dentist, they're listening to you. They've got a $2.5 million practice, and they're saying to themselves, I really don't know if I could retire. Surely at home, my wife is always demanding trips, this, that, go out. I don't know what to do. I need to reach somebody like Tim McNeely. How do they find you, first of all?
Yeah, so I'm super easy to find. You go to timmcneely.com or shoot me a text or phone call at 818-534-4949. That's 818-534-4949. But to that 60-year-old doctor who just isn't sure, what I would tell you is first, it's okay, right? It's going to take some courage. It's going to take some confidence to actually really look at your numbers. And it can be scary. It's kind of like showing someone your underwear, Mark. You're not quite sure that we want to do that.
That's what.
Right. But if you want to get healthy, this is what you got to do, right? It's the same fear that your patients often have coming to see you. They haven't seen the dentist in a long time. They're just not sure, right? They're embarrassed with their teeth. And so I see you, I feel you, I understand that. But take that step, right? Take some courage just to look at where you are and figure out what your options are. Because like I said, today, there's so many options out there. And maybe with a couple little tweaks in your practice, you can create and unlock some wealth. Or maybe you've got some big expenses that through a little bit of planning, we can reduce, right? But just have the courage to step out there and build a plan because it's not going to get better unless you do.
It's awesome. What great advice you gave today. Thank you so much, Tim. I got to tell you that, I really do mean what I say. I was a like I put my head down and I borrowed. I built practices big size, but then you look at your family and you look at your future and you have to start getting annuity money. And, you turn to people in the financial world, but how great is it to have somebody who's understands dentistry and understands what we go through and the different hurdles that we carry within our profession. Every profession has their own, and then be able to guide us to our financial freedom that we all look for is phenomenal. Tim McNeely, it's been tough to get a hold of you, but I got to tell you, it's been worth every minute. You're really incredibly knowledgeable about our field, and a lot of times, I ask these questions today about that 60-year-old. It's like calling a sex doctor and asking for your friend, So I want to say that I think we'll be talking because I think you can help in all aspects. And I really appreciate your time and your guidance and your wisdom. And it's really exceptional. Thank you, Tim McNeely. And if you like this episode, please like us on all your platforms. We are growing and we are going to bring the best of the best as seen by Mr. McNeely, who you can reach him at those contact numbers. But I got to tell you, this was a wealth of knowledge. So thank you. We'll see you on another episode of Dentistry Beyond the Numbers. Thank you.